the Sportsline Podcast. I'm Andrew Damelin, sitting in for Bubba O'Neill. We are thrilled to have today's guest. She is an OUA champion, an 8-time OUA medalist, and the captain of the McMaster Marauders swim team. Her name is Michelle Wang. Michelle, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such a cool opportunity.
I'm glad you came in, made the trip all the way over to Dundas. Thanks so much for doing that. You grew up in Port Elgin.
Yes, I did.
Population 8,000-ish.
Somewhere in that range, yeah.
And you started swimming when you were 8 years old. What's your first memory of, you know what, I enjoy competing at this sport?
Oh, wow. First memory of enjoying competing. I think I didn't really fully get into swimming, competitive swimming, really enjoying it until probably grade 9, grade 10, somewhere in that range. But yeah, my first memory of competing was, I think it was a 50-meter freestyle, and went in, spun my arms really, really fast, and got out of the pool, and one of my teammates came over and gave me a really big high five and a hug, and it was really, really sweet.
So I imagine when you started out, your natural ability carried you, gave you some early success. People saw that you were able to win at an early age, perhaps, unless you weren't winning at an early age.
I don't think I was. I was definitely not one of the quicker kids at a club level, especially in elementary school. Even in high school, we have OFSA in Ontario, so it's the high school provincial meets. I don't think I qualified for that in grade 9, and then kind of worked my way up a little bit, and then yeah, same thing with university career. Started in first year not qualifying for youth sports, and then kind of worked my way up a little bit as well.
So that's an unconventional path, in the elite sort of athlete circles. You hear of Michael Jordan not making the team in grade 9, and there are these athletes out there that have this inner motivation to improve, and they get chips on their shoulders. Some people sort of play with an anger, an edge to them. You find that you're not competing at the highest level when you start with the sport. You have to work at it. Maybe it's with your family, maybe it's with friends, maybe it's with coaches. You've talked about the compassion and care that your high school coaches especially gave you. Where did that motivation to improve when you didn't have initial success come from?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a good question. I think a big part of it is falling in love with the process. I think that especially as I went into grade 9, grade 10, and I met a couple really great, compassionate, and caring coaches, they kind of rewarded effort rather than, a spot on the podium or a time on the clock. And I feel that made a really big difference in being celebrate those small successes, right? So it's every time you finish a hard workout, it's yeah, I showed up, I worked hard, and I worked smart. That's enough. That's good. And it's finding one thing to learn every day, not necessarily being 1 millisecond faster or PBing every time you race, but instead being enjoying the process and then, finding something to learn. Yeah.
I find these, endurance sports, individual sports so interesting and different from the team sports. I'm a team sport background where, you put the ball in the basket, you put the puck in the net. For you and I spoke with rowers a couple years ago as well, this sort of pain tolerance you have to gather. And I feel if you're going to get to a high level, at some point you have to start enjoying the pain of the process, which I can't relate to in the least. But for the rowers, they found peace in the nature and embracing their thighs burning with each stroke. Is there a point in your career where the pain didn't become something to fight, but something to kind of almost enjoy?
That's such a good question. I feel especially myself as a sprinter, my races last 26 seconds, 27 seconds, somewhere in that range. I think the biggest pain aspect for me is holding your breath. So the entire 50 meters, just don't breathe. And I feel in high school especially, there was a point where I kind of dreaded that challenge because I was oh, I know I shouldn't breathe, don't breathe. So then I think don't breathe. And then when you think, don't do that, you're going to do that. So I think there was a point where I really it was really difficult. But at a certain point, it kind of clicked, and just like feeling yourself like be able to do it and like feeling your body like push itself to those limits, you kind of like forget the pain, honestly. Like you forget that you need air. And like the feeling after your race when you can like finally take a deep breath is, you know, kind of gratifying in a sense.
That's amazing. And with the coaches that you've described, this compassionate mindset and imparting of their sort of techniques on trying to get you to do it in the pool. When I think of, you know, endurance and sprint coaching, and even in team sports as well, I think of a coach that might, to motivate you, really needs to yell at you in a productive way, not in a negative or an abusive way. There's lots of players that credit their coaches for giving them that extra bit of motivation. And when you're trying to get an extra millisecond, tenth of a second, you mentioned compassion versus what I might think as yelling. Like, you don't need that type of outer motivation, the sort of very flamboyant coaching, that type of thing. It's something else that motivates you, that a coach gets you to go faster, would you say?
There's definitely a balance. I think I've been really lucky to have a lot of great coaches in my life, and I feel like each of them has kind of a different coaching style. So I feel like in club, like it was very like club, like high school swimming, elementary school swimming.
Breakers, the Breakers Club?
Breakers, exactly. Breakers swim team. It was very like technical. It was very, you know, like, we're going to find a racing strategy. We're going to be very deliberate about this. And it's very much so like a, you know, like a strategy. And like the finer things, I think. But I think something that was really exciting that when I came to McMaster was I kind of got that like more like typical coaching that you described, where like the coach would hype us up. Like I think Gray's done an excellent job of, you know, like giving us speeches before meets, and he does this thing where he's like, I am so excited, and we have to like repeat it back to him. And it's just stuff like that like kind of gets you more excited, gets you more hyped. You can really feel the energy, and I feel like yeah.
So you like you said, you didn't medal in any event your first 2 years at McMaster, and then third year you sprout, you get a ton of medals.
Yeah.
And I'd like you to take us through a race of yours, actually. Jay Barlett, the media man at McMaster, sent us a race. And I just want to go through each sort of stage of it. You can see it on the monitor here.
Yeah. Oh
this is the beginning of the race. It's a freestyle race. I'm not sure which one it was, but I think it's a 50-meter freestyle. And at this stage here, you get taken off the podium. I'm not exactly sure what happened. Can you sort of give us a play-by-play of what happened in this race? Because right now what you're going to see is you getting off the podium and the rest of the race. So what's going through your mind right now as you have to step off the podium? You're trying to gather yourself here.
Do you know what's so funny? I don't remember stepping off. Like looking back on it now, I do not remember that. But
you're shaking out the arms. Like,
yeah.
Are these all rituals you plan, or all these nervous tics? How does it work?
I think it's just like keeping the muscles loose, you know, like locking in again, getting back in the zone.
So now we're off into the pool. So we're right at the beginning. You know, sprinters talk about the acceleration phase and then the full sprint phase and then the totally out of gas for the last 30-meter phase. How does that compare with this as we go the home stretch here?
Yeah, that first 25 that you just saw was very much so like I'm hanging on for dear life. Like you dive off the block a little bit faster than you can swim, right? So it's trying to hold on to that speed. And then, come up for breath here. Yeah, that's the breath I was talking about. And then there's my thumbs up.
So what was the result in this race? It's hard to tell from this angle.
I believe this was the B final at OUAs for the 50 free. I don't think I PB'd, but I think it was a solid race overall. Again, like there's that aspect of like every time you race, you can learn something from it. And I think there were a lot of like little things that I picked up on from that I was able to apply to like future races, which is good.
It's huge. And you know, as the co-captain, you've also mentioned the hype up speech that you like to give to your teammates. You talked about your coaches, but how has the leadership aspect evolved for you over these now 2 seasons as captain of the women's team?
Yeah, I think my perspective on leadership has changed a lot throughout my career as a university swim team captain. I think like I started even like in just first year, I started coming into the swim team thinking like, oh, like some people are, like born leaders, and some people are just like naturally extroverted and whatever that makes them a good leader. But I think as time went on, I realized that nobody inherently has these like leadership skills. Like it's something that you can grow on, you can learn about, and you can develop. And I think that's kind of driven me to want to do that. Like knowing that it's a skill that you can practice really does empower you to do so. So I think like I definitely didn't start off as like the most like perfect captain ever, but I kind of grew into my role and grew into having a bit more confidence about it. And I think just like, I don't know, I think my favorite aspect of it is just seeing like the smile on a teammate's face after you like high five them, or when all our like women's team stands in a circle before our races start or before the meet starts, and we go around and say some nice things to each other, and you feel all like warm and fuzzy inside. And yeah, I think I don't know, people often think of like the most fulfilling parts of leadership as like these big moments where like you inspire like big change or you empower some big action. But it's I feel like for me it's more like, like the quieter moments and the ones that are maybe a little bit smaller but just as meaningful that keep me going.
It seems like in each part of your athletic life and your very successful academic life,
thank you.
You really think about everything. You think about, it seems like anyway, you think about how you're going to lead, and what makes a good leader. And I've talked to a lot of coaches about their leadership styles, and for coaches especially, like they obsess over this type of thing. How am I going to get through to each person? And they find, each individual person needs a little bit something different. Some need a kick in the butt. Some need some more compassion. Have you found that this sort of individualized style of leadership, have you sort of worked that, or do you have more of a holistic type of approach when you deal with your fellow teammates?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, especially in my role as a team captain, like, yes, I am a leader in some sense, but like these are also my peers. So it's like I'm friends with like everyone on the team. And I think even like as we get like new classes of first years coming in, you get to know like each individual swimmer. You get to know like your second years, your third years, and fourth years like me better. And I feel like beyond like the teammate aspect, like there's also that friendship aspect. And yeah, like everyone's absolutely like unique and different. Like some people you just need to you walk up to them and be like, yeah, like lock in, and that's enough. But some people you sit down with them and you're like, hey, like you've got this, like this is what you've done in practice, this is what you've shown, this is, like these are the times that you've been able to put down, this is the technique that you've been working on, stuff like that. And that's the kind of thing that gets through to them. So yeah, definitely a unique aspect to it.
And I want to mention the academic success. 98% in grade 12 was your average, not to make you blush or anything. I remember I had a friend, we were both applying to university at the same time. He went to Harvard, he got 100 in algebra, geometry, and this is something I couldn't relate to. And now you move on, and you're this balance that you have to strike as an athlete and a student. Is this something that's come easy to you? I mean, I wouldn't say school has come easy to you, but you've always excelled at school, at least at the high school level. And I know for the first 2 years you were on the Dean's Honor List. I imagine that continued for third year. How has the balance to strike, you've improved every year as a swimmer. I imagine you're doing well in school. How has that sort of evolved? Was anything more difficult than you imagined as you entered university? How's the adapting to all of that been going?
Yeah, I think I was in a pretty fortunate position just because I had so much practice in high school, balancing a full high school day of school and then like having morning practice before, like practice again after. Yeah, I think that practice really did help. It wasn't too big of an adjustment coming into university, which was nice. Definitely like swimming practices were a little bit longer. We had more pool time, which is also nice, but also challenging. And I think the biggest difference in school for me was having more freedom with my schedule. So it wasn't like from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. you're in school. It's more like, like you have a class Monday from 9 to 10 and then the rest of the day is free. So it's like, what do I do at that time? And yeah, the answer most of the time was just swim. But yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you about that I almost forgot.
Yeah.
I think about these Olympic athletes, and in the locker room before they get called out for their event, the intentional or unintentional mind games that are played between competing athletes that are feet away from each other in the locker room. Is there any aspect of that for an OUA athlete? I don't know if you're the one that plays the game with the other athletes, or if you are trained to avoid it and just try to retreat into yourself. Is there any of that sort of game within the game stuff before you even step onto the deck?
That's so funny because I didn't know that people were were doing like the mind games. What comes to mind actually is like recently I had the opportunity to race at World Cup, which was really cool because I got to be next to like all of my heroes kind of. I remember I was in the ready room before one of my races, and like a couple feet to my right I had like Gretchen Walsh, and a couple feet to my left like Kylie Moss was there, and I was honestly just like starstruck. You know when like horses are walking on the road and they have like the blind things beside their eyes? I was like, I need those so I don't just like stare at them the whole time. Yeah, no, I don't think there's much like mind games going on. It's for myself especially, I think like it's mostly just think about your racing strategy, like trust your training, trust your ability to perform, kind of like visualize that race ahead of time and like visualize yourself succeeding. And I think like similarly at like an OUA level or a U Sport level, like those meets as well. There's not necessarily like a ready room in all of them, but even just standing behind the blocks with your competitors, usually we go around, give some fist bumps, you know. Yeah, not much else to it.
So you had an incredible season last year, 8-time medaling. What are the goals for the rest of the season?
I think my goals for the rest of the season are just to PB, grow a little bit as, you know, an athlete and work on that like mental aspect as well. Yeah, I think also since it's probably going to be my last year at Mac, I think so. You know, just being in the moment, enjoying it. And then, yeah, on, I guess, a more performance aspect, I was pretty close to the OUA record last year in the one that I got golden, the 50 fly. I think I was 0.02 seconds off. So hopefully with a cheeky little PB, that's in sight, I hope.
Do you remember, did you watch Summer McIntosh at the World Indoor Championships?
Yeah,
she, you know, blazed through the field, but there was one event where she won gold, but she didn't set a world record.
Yeah, I
Do you
did see
remember
that.
she looked up at the board, she saw her time, and she said the F word so loudly?
Yeah.
Is there any part of that? Is there any part of that for you when because you know you want to set the new personal best? You may even win a race, but is there a part of you that still has that, you know, lack of satisfaction with what you know that you're capable of sometimes?
See, that's where there's, I feel like, a little bit of a dichotomy in me, because on one hand, I'm like, obviously I'm very happy with how I did. If you told me like 5 years ago this is where I'd be like, oh, haha, like funny joke, you know. But yeah, so I think I'm really satisfied with my growth, and I'm satisfied with, you know, like what I've been able to put forward, and especially with like the effort and like that aspect of like it's scary and it's challenging, but getting up and trying anyways and kind of taking what comes. I don't think there was no aspect of me that was like disappointed that I didn't get the record, because, you know, like a record's always going to be relative to someone else's performance, right? So it's like if you want to measure yourself against someone else, like just go to a faster meet and you're just going to be like lower and lower in the standards, you know, or go to a slower meet and you're going to be higher and higher in the standards. So I think like looking at it more on like a personal level is what works best for me. So I dropped a huge PB that day, and it was a clean race overall technically, and I was able to change a lot of things from the morning that I wanted to change. So yeah, no, I don't think I was unsatisfied, but again, like now looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, like I can do that. Like that's a goal for the future. So like in a way, like I guess I am a little bit like hungry for it, but yeah.
No, it seems like you got the right mindset every year you're growing, you're wanting to improve, but you're also able to celebrate each incremental step, each, whether it's a medal, whether it's a great practice, whether it's inspiring a teammate. There's something positive with each step in a very, very competitive, swimming landscape. So, Michelle, it's incredible to hear your story. Like, thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah.
I know you got a little bit of a break coming up, but you're going to Jamaica for training camp coming up in December.
Yeah.
So enjoy that while you work really hard. Enjoy the weather otherwise. And, from everyone at CHCH, Michelle, we just wish you the best of luck for the rest of the season and wherever your swimming career takes you.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
That is Michelle Wang, and that is your Sportsline podcast for the day. As you've just seen, we love talking sports. If you know an athlete, team, or event to promote, the Sportsline podcast wants to hear from you. Please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. And if you have something to say, please comment. For everyone that make the Sportsline podcast possible, thank you, and we will see you next time.